I've learned that through being vulnerable, I can actually do so much more.
Yeah.
I think being a perfectionist as well is like a symptom of not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the person that I've been for a very, very long time. Always wanting to play it safe because I know if I do things like this is the result I'm going to get. There's no other way, no surprises, nothing. And with vulnerability, it's like audacity, right? You kind of need to be willing to try something and for it to fail,
be okay with failure.
and to be and to be okay with it. When I started Set in Motion, I was like, I don't know how people are going to receive this. Who wants to teach children about private parts? Who wants to teach children about safe and dangerous adults? Who wants to have such uncomfortable conversations? But I was like, I need to do it, you know. And also just sharing in launching Set in Motion as well, I shared my story about how I'm a mom and how I'm aware of the dangers that surround our children within the specific topic.
Absolutely.
You know. So I think I've become a lot more daring.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Mental Health and Motherhood with Beledi. I am joined by an amazing lady. She is such a lady, guys. Such a lady. She's got a big profile. I love that. But my favorite thing about her is her humility, and just how she carries herself. She is an economics honors graduate. She's got such an interest in the youth. She's the founder of Set in Motion SA. She is a content creator. I'm sure she's one of your faves. So yeah, let's get into this conversation. I am joined by Palesa Phake today. And I cannot wait for this conversation.
I can't wait either. Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I am good.
Good.
You are so chilled, so grounded. But there's that sense of like knowing that, like you know who you are, but you're not very like
a bit like too out there. Hey? Yeah.
You're such a lady. You've got such a presence. But you don't. There are people that know that. Okay,
I've arrived,
and they'll walk in a room and they'll make you feel like, I've arrived. Your presence just speaks for you.
Thank you.
And it's like and that's like a superpower, right? Where do you get that?
That's really sweet. Honestly speaking, I think I get it a lot from my childhood. I feel like we just started the podcast and we're gonna get so deep already. I think a lot of it definitely comes from my childhood. I lost both of my parents at a very young age.
Oh, really? I'm sorry about that.
So my dad when I was around 2 and my mom when I was 9. So from that time I was raised by my older brother who was 21 at the time.
Wow.
And so we've kind of had to learn how to figure life out together.
Sure.
And by the grace of God, I learned to be very responsible at a young age. And I think it's because of a lot of values my mom instilled into me from a very, very young age. I mean, I didn't have my mom for that long in my life, but the time that I did spend with her, the time that she was still alive, she really instilled some amazing values into me.
Sure.
So I think my poise, as you call it, sort of just stems from how I grew up and a bit of my background as well.
Sure. Firstly, I'm so sorry about your parents. But that's just the thing, right? Someone said, the refining process, especially when it happens so early in life, it tends to do something in people, right? you know, when you meet people and they are very like boastful, you get to sometimes get a sense that they haven't experienced life.
Exactly.
Because when you experience life, it calms you down, you know? And I guess then people experience humility because you've seen like the lows.
Yeah, I think I agree, and I kind of disagree with that as well, because one thing that I always say when people do find out my story, because it's something that I'm only learning now how to speak about my background as well, because I would never share this type of information with anyone, you know, from like the first time that I met them. But I always tell people that there's absolutely nothing special about me. I'm not superior towards, in comparison to anyone else. I really believe that my life is just a reflection of God's grace.
Sure,
there really could have been, there were two ways with my story and how I grew up. I honestly could have ended up as a statistic.
Sure.
Right? And I don't know how it happened, but it was like year after year, I saw the grace of God over my life. I saw it through the people He would bring into my life. So although I didn't have both of my parents, but I always had people who were there to guide me, right? People who were, I remember like my mom, when she was still alive, she wasn't much of a church goer, but she made sure that she would take me to church every Sunday.
Oh, wow. That is complex, right?
Right? So she would literally drop me off at church and then go back home and then pick me up later. And so I grew up in a small town in Sasolburg. It's in the Vaal. And we had one small community church that a lot of us basically grew up in. And at this church was this man. He actually spoke at my traditional wedding last year, Uncle Greg. And I don't know what it is about that man, or you know, some encounters like you can't explain to say, God, how did this happen? But this man literally played such a significant role in my life. He would always affirm me, and not like in a weird way, you know, but he would always affirm me of my beauty, of my intelligence, of the calling that I have over my life. And it played such a huge role in some of the decisions that I've made and decisions that I continue to make today. I had my godmom as well, my mom's best friend, who really also looked out for me. She actually passed just before I gave birth to my son. But she played such a significant role in my life with me growing up, you know. So when I look back sometimes I'm like, God, how did this happen? How am I this person today? And the only answer I get is that it's just grace.
Absolutely.
I honestly couldn't have done or become who I am today by myself.
Sure.
So experiences are not always a guarantee that
they're not
a guarantee of humility from someone. I really think that sometimes we are a product of our environment.
Absolutely.
A product of the people around us, and also a product of choice. Because choice is
to a large extent.
Self. What's this word that God uses? Self. Is it will?
I don't know if it's will you're looking for, but
free will.
Like
free will. Yes. Free will also plays a part in that.
Absolutely, because you're right. I mean, there are statistics out there, and you could have easily, you know, turned into one of those.
Exactly.
And, you know, it can't just be minimized to just, you know, the experience itself. No, you know, because many people have been through that.
Exactly.
But, you know, I must say that, like, it does, like, you know, there's a sense of, I don't know if you get one, there's a sense of, you know, when life hasn't, like, literally happened. I know that before I lost my mom, right? I felt like I get it, and you know, when people lose their parents, I'd text this, that, and I'd say a lot of things.
Yeah.
And once I was in those shoes, I don't even say a lot to people that go through loss now, because I get it.
Yeah.
I thought I got it, you know, but we are absolutely grateful for the people that were in your life and guided you.
No, so am I.
Sure.
Eternally grateful.
Sure. But now take me through what that looked like emotionally for you as a child.
Sure. As As a child, it looked like a lot of dissociation, a lot of not wanting to be vulnerable at all, because who am I going to be vulnerable to, right? It looked like strength as well.
Sure.
Yeah. I learned to be strong at a very, very young age. But I think, and it's even something I'm learning now, vulnerability, I think, is something that I really struggled with for a very, very long time, because I couldn't just let my guard down. I couldn't just get home and cry because such and such was mean to me. You know, like as a child, you have your parents to be there for you for such things, you know. Yeah, it wasn't easy. I won't lie, it wasn't easy. But my brother also did his best. My brother did his level best to take care of me, to provide for me. I never went to school hungry. I never went to school with a torn sock.
Wow.
I never went to school with messy hair.
Sure.
I was very, very, very well taken care of. And mind you, my brother was 21.
I'm thinking about
and
that.
You know how 21-year-olds are. Sometimes I think, when I turned 21, I was like, geez.
How did you do
Yeah, this is like my brother literally had to become a dad to a 9-year-old at 21. And I'm like, how?
Sure.
And the answer is grace.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Sure. And I mean, I'm skipping so much of what happened, right? But how was it for him to like let you go? When you said, listen, I think I found the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. How was that for him?
I hope he's going to watch this because I'm snitching on you.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy for him at all. I think my brother is also someone who does struggle with vulnerability. I have seen, he has a daughter, so I have seen his daughter sort of like break that wall, which is so beautiful to see. Yeah, he loves his daughter to bits, and you can imagine how much he loves his daughter with the way that he took care of me, right? So it wasn't easy at all, hey. And mind you, my husband and I literally we got married 7 months after we met.
Wow, actually,
so
no way.
Yeah, by the time he sent a letter to my family. My brother had probably met him twice in person. None of my family members really knew him. Wow. My grandmother didn't even know I was dating already at the time. So it was pretty chaotic. It was chaotic. It was crazy. But I was like, this is my man, and I'm going to stick by him, okay?
And I can imagine the sense of betrayal.
Yeah, I think for my brother, it wasn't necessarily a sense of betrayal, but it was more like, who's going to take care of you the way that I have? You know, another man wants to come and take care of you. Like, who is he? Where does he come from? What does he do? Why does he want to marry you?
Does he know you as well as I do?
Do you know him? Sure. Do you know him? You know, what's the rush?
Are you going to be safe with him?
Exactly.
Sure.
And now they go camping together.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. That is so
now
beautiful.
They go camping together. They call each other. So I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, no, that is beautiful.
The beauty of time.
Right? Sure. But that is so amazing of your brother, because I can imagine how much of, sacrifices he had to make to not live like a 21-year-old and be responsible for a whole human.
Exactly.
When you haven't given birth, you just like...
It wasn't, not by choice, not by action.
And he's dealing with his own trauma as well, because he lost parents as well. So that is just, you don't see that every day, especially with guys.
No, you don't. And honestly, that time was so difficult. And I think my brother and I, we don't really talk much about the period around when we knew my mom was going to pass. I was actually very much unaware that she was going to pass because I think a year or two prior to that, she was sick. So she had TB. And at that time, we all thought there's no way this woman is going to make it. There were times where, so my mom she was a single parent. And she worked at Cecil for about 25 years as a librarian there. So she wasn't really earning much, right? So we didn't have a car, but she still had to go for her doctor's appointment during her 6-month treatment for TB. And there were times where we'd literally be walking through town and she would be leaning on me, like we'd walk 2 minutes, stop, because she would run out of breath. And at the time there was like, this woman is not going to make it, because she was incredibly sick. And then she was fine. She made it. And then a year or two later, pneumonia. And literally within a few months, her condition had deteriorated so badly. But in my mind at the time, like, I was like, her passing was the furthest thing on my mind. Because I remember even the day I found out that she had passed, I had braided my hair a few days prior. And that day we were meant to go visit her again in hospital. So I woke up in the morning. I was at my mom's best friend's house. So I wake up in the morning, and as a child, I think you kind of know when you, like, I woke up in the morning and the mood in the house was pretty somber, you know. And my mom's best friend, I could tell she'd been crying, and she had a son who's actually around the same, we were like 2 weeks apart. We were always bickering all the time. Very close, but you know how kids are, we were always bickering. But that morning he woke up, he went to the shops, he bought me sweets. Oh my God. And I was like, why are you being so nice to me? And we got into the car and we're driving to the hospital. At this point, we'd gone to the hospital a couple of times, so I know the route to the hospital. But that day we took a different turn, and we were on our way to our house. So as we come around the corner, I saw so many cars. Like, and at that point, like, you kind of know. So I asked her, and I'm like, where are we going? Like, why are we coming home? We're supposed to go to the hospital to see Mama, you know. And she just kept quiet. We got out of the car, and as we came around the corner of the house, my brother, Uncle Greg, was actually there as well. And some of the youth members were sort of like all just sitting together, and my brother's eyes were red. I had never seen my brother cry before. And I knew, like, you have this sinking feeling, but you're also kind of in denial.
Yeah, you're like, nah.
Yeah, and as I walk into the house, Abo Gogo, everyone is sitting. And I'm like, and then, like, what's going on? And my grandmother just sat me down. And she explained to me what happened, and I had a complete meltdown. Even at that age, I had a complete meltdown, and I said, you guys are lying, there's no way. I just spoke to her, we're supposed to go to the hospital, you know. But that was sort of the beginning of a very interesting life, not only for myself but for my brother, because I think in that moment, like, he also saw the amount of responsibility that was on his shoulders, considering the fact, he always tells me that my mom always said, you and your sister must never ever be apart. You live with your sister, you must take care of her. So I think with him taking care of me as well, it was a way of honoring her as well, because my mom was very clear to say, you better take care of that child. She's not going to go live with an aunt or a grandmother. None of that. But yeah, also very grateful for the type of brother that I have.
Oh my God. You know, I think we don't give kids enough credit, right? How old were you?
I was 9.
Yeah, we don't give kids enough credit, because you are driving into the home and you can see what's happening, but nobody's telling you this.
Nothing.
You know? But you can see what's happening, and I think that can be traumatic, right? Because you go into a state where you're wondering a whole lot of things as a child.
Right. But I think it was a difficult situation for everyone. Like, it couldn't have been easy. My niece is turning 9 this year, my brother's son. And I mean, I can't say I would handle the situation better than the adults in my life did at the time, because, like, what do you say? What do you say? How do you tell a child that your second parent is gone now as well? You know, so I really think everyone just did their best in that situation to handle it the best way that they could. But yes, we do underestimate kids a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they can see and sense things, and
sometimes even more than us.
Right? Because think about it, even with your son, because your mom, when you have a bad day, he knows.
He knows. When he gets a new pair of shoes, he, like, because whenever I don't go to the mall with him. I don't go, malls with toddlers, no ways.
Yeah, no.
So I'll go to the mall, buy him a pair of shoes, and then we'll fit them when he gets home. And he'll wear them, and I'll obviously be hyping him up. Oh, you look so cute. And you can just see the way he walks, like it even changes. And I'm like, you are 18 months old. How are you aware that you just got a brand new pair of shoes? But they're so smart.
They are very, very smart. I'm so sorry about your loss. Where is your perspective of life? Because once everything is done, and I'm asking because I when I lost my mom, and we were older, my little brother was 17, he was in matric, but I remember just on Sunday sitting there watching the chairs, and I'm like, okay, she would usually be the one that's gonna
doing this, yeah.
And I was like, what is this? What's supposed to happen? And life didn't make sense for a while, and it also didn't make sense why everyone else were moving on like nothing happened. So where are you mentally after everything? Everyone is gone. What do you think has to happen from here on?
To be honest, I don't remember that time. And that's why I said earlier on, I think losing my mom at the time, a lot of dissociation happened. And obviously it's a result of trauma, right? I honestly don't remember. Like, I do remember the first day I had to get ready for school. It was just my brother and I. So I was such a mama's girl. My mom would bathe me. I slept with her all the time. We cuddled, like, we were close. So that first morning without her was very strange. And I remember the transport was waiting for me outside and I was late. My hair wasn't done. My brother's also trying to figure out like what needs to be done.
It's only his first day.
And it was just so chaotic. He was irritated, not because of anything else except like he's panicking, like, and I think reality set in for him that day again, because it's like, oh my goodness,
I'm left to do all of this.
Doing homework. I did homework with my mom. It was freaking scary because my mom was so strict. You would know that a B face is this way, but when you do homework with her, suddenly you're writing D's, because you're so nervous to do homework with her. But she was all about excellence, which is one of the things I think I adopted as well from a young age.
I think
doing things, doing things properly, finishing school, putting effort into your homework, studying, going to class, getting good grades. That was my mom. So that first day, it wasn't easy. And like I said, even with something like doing homework, I had to kind of learn how to figure things out myself. Because at the time, my brother and I didn't really have a relationship. So going to him and asking him to help me with homework, like it was awkward, But again, also taught me to be very self-sustainable, because I can kind of figure things out myself. But at the same time, it made me very, I feel even to date, feeling very awkward to ask for help, because I've done everything myself.
The first instinct so is long. To sort it out. You don't think, let me ask for help. Yeah,
and even with my husband, that's something he really had to like work through with me, to say like, you're not alone anymore. Let's do this together, Sure. Emotionally, I can be here for you. What do you need me to do? He loves asking me that, like, what do you need from me?
Sure.
And in the beginning, my initial response was, no, babe, I'll be fine. And then 2 days later, sometimes I'm like literally I'm panicking because I'm actually not. And he would say, let me help you, like, I'm here.
Sure.
So the moment after my mom passed, I don't really remember much. I remember the funeral. I remember the first day back at school. But everything else kind of just feels like a blur from there. There are things I obviously remember here and there. I got into a lot of fights.
Sure.
After her
passing. So that was an outlet.
Yeah. And I fought with boys a lot. So don't mess with me.
It's crazy because you're so calm.
And that's the last time I remember getting into like fights. I fought with boys a lot. Like there was this boy in class who once made a joke, and I think he wasn't aware that my mom had passed.
Oh no.
And he made a joke and he said, mme wa hao o rekisa ditamati renkeng. And now looking back, I'm like, that is so dumb. But I jumped over the table and I tackled him. I was like, what are you saying about my mom? You know?
Oh my God.
But it was literally it was anger. It was all of these emotions that I was feeling. And I just became a bit of a violent little girl at the time. But it didn't last long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's grace, right?
Yeah, it didn't last long.
What are some of the challenges, even like especially as a teenager and coming into womanhood, some of the challenges of just growing up without a mother around?
You know, I think I'm going to answer that, but I think even today, as a 25-year-old young adult, young woman, there are things I can definitely say, if my mom had been around to show me this, like I would have figured this out a long time ago. And so with myself and my husband, like I like to make things look pretty, right? So even in our home, I'm learning how to be a homemaker. I never saw that from anyone, right? Things like very silly things like having a nice tea set for when guests come over. I know for a lot of people that's very like duh, but so of course you should know this. But I was living with my brother. He couldn't care if there were 2 mugs. One is pink, the other one is orange. Like it didn't matter to him. We didn't even have Tupperware, none of that, right? Things that
I can imagine.
When you have a woman in the house, you see these things and they are very normal. So even now, like with me being a wife and me being a mom, like I'm learning a lot of things as I go, and thank God for social media as well.
Right.
Because I follow a lot of homemaking Instagram pages now.
And you're doing great with it. Because I'm shocked. I'm like, girl, what? Because your space looks amazing.
No, thank you.
So one wouldn't tell that it's something that you have to really be intentional about.
No, it definitely is, and I think I'm also a bit insecure about my taste and my style as well.
It's classy. Listen, love it.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing bad. But sometimes as I'm doing certain things, there's a bit of insecurity as well that creeps up, which then takes me back to even in my teenage years. My brother, obviously, he was trying to figure himself out as a young man. He was 21. He had to drop out of school at the time after my mom passed. And there was a time he was working 2 jobs. At night, he was a waiter. During the day, he was working at Mittel in the Vaal. So he was trying to figure himself out. Like looking back, I'm like, geez, there's not much I could have expected from him. And honestly, with what he did do for me, I'm really so grateful, you know. But I think when I was younger in my teenage years, one thing I definitely struggled with a lot was self-esteem and insecurities as well. Like I said, I never spoke about my mom. A lot of people only knew that both my parents had passed by the time I got to varsity.
Oh, wow.
Because it's just something I never wanted to speak about. I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. I didn't want to hear that I'm so sorry. You know, to me, I was just like, I don't want to hear that, right? But I would say those are some of the biggest struggles that I had. Yeah.
And I mean, I can relate, right? For me, I was 21. I had just gotten married, pregnant. But still, I felt like I was so angry when I was about to give birth because I was like, I don't want to see anyone in the delivery room. I don't want any woman. Don't try to replace my mother. So it's such a personal time that you feel like it's like everything, you take everything so personally. So I can get the, don't ask me, I don't want to talk about it because also you're struggling with vulnerability. But what has been your journey with vulnerability so far, especially now that you have people that you know are a safe space for you?
Honestly, I think I'm only now starting to get familiar with vulnerability because of the type of man I'm married to.
Sure, man. God will deliver, ne?
Right? I always say God restores. It's like, and I mean, I'm not saying he's taken away the fact that I lost my parents and now he's replaced it with something else. But
he does deliver.
I think I've really seen how God can restore and redeem so many things that were lost, and I've seen that through my marriage. My husband is probably one of the sweetest people. I don't even want to say men. One of the sweetest people that I have personally met in my entire life. He is so caring. You know, he's like my... sounds very cliche, but he really is my safe space. I feel like I can be completely vulnerable with him. He has encouraged me as well, like even with starting therapy. I started therapy when I was pregnant. And he encouraged that, you know. So I think I'm definitely learning that vulnerability is actually a superpower. And also with me being a mom, I'm aware that I kind of need to be vulnerable in order for me to be a present mom as well.
Because you can't give what you don't have.
No, you know, and how can I expect my son to be open with me and for him to also have a healthy relationship with his emotions if I don't have a healthy relationship with mine? So yeah, it hasn't been an easy journey. Sometimes I really want to run into a room, close the door and say, I'll just figure it out by myself, leave me alone. But I have an amazing partner now that has really taught me that, you know, vulnerability, there's nothing wrong with it.
So what have you learned through learning to be vulnerable? What have you learned about yourself?
Sure, that's a loaded question. I've learned that through being vulnerable, I can actually do so much more. I think being a perfectionist as well is like a symptom of not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to make mistakes. And that's kind of the person that I've been for a very, very long time. Always wanting to play it safe because I know if I do things like this is the result I'm going to get. There's no other way, no surprises, nothing. And with vulnerability, it's like audacity, right? You kind of need to be willing to try something and for it to fail.
Be okay with failure.
And to be, and to be okay with it. When I started Set in Motion, I was like, I don't know how people are going to receive this. Who wants to teach children about private parts? Who wants to teach children about safe and dangerous adults? Who wants to have such uncomfortable conversations? But I was like, I need to do it, you know? And also just sharing... In launching Set in Motion as well, I shared my story about how I'm a mom and how I'm aware of the dangers that surround our children within the specific topic, you know. So I think I've become a lot more daring, even coming to this podcast today. I have turned down so many people wanting to bring me over on their YouTube platforms, Instagram lives. I'm always like... I don't want to talk about myself. Like, I'm okay. You know, I'm good. Whatever people see on social media, that's where I want to keep it. I don't want people knowing too much about me. So I think with vulnerability, it's taught me that there is so much more to me and so much more that I can share in terms of my story that can hopefully touch someone or impact someone else's life.
Sure, absolutely.
You know? Yeah.
And I mean, it's a hard thing to do. But, you know, have you ever had to just sit and actually process that I'm safe now?
Every day, because like I said, my default setting in anything is always, it's fine, I'm going to do this myself. I don't need to ask anyone for help. And now that I am living with someone as well who almost holds me incredibly accountable. Accountable to myself, accountable to my emotions. Oh, another thing. And this is going to sound, I never thought I'd see the day I would admit this on a public platform.
Oh, wow.
But saying I'm sorry was something you could have never caught me doing. No ways. Because why am I wrong? Because with me being wrong, it means I'm not perfect.
I'm not perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm really not perfect.
Yeah.
But my husband holds me accountable to say, babe, when I bring something up and I say, such and such happened and it made me feel this way, your immediate response shouldn't have to be, but
I was not trying to do.
He's like, I'm not attacking you in that moment. I am not saying you are the mistake that you made. I am pointing out the mistake that you made, not that you are that thing. Because in my mind, that's how I would sort of register people correcting me to say, are you trying to say I'm this type of person? You know? So learning to say I'm sorry, and I can see how much better it has made my relationships.
Right.
Even with myself, when I make like a personal mistake within my own life, like I'm actually able to say, okay, Palesa, that was not very smart, that was not very nice, but let's move on, you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you think it has a lot to do with feeling like life has put you in a position where you constantly have to defend yourself, and you're just like,
exactly that.
I might defend myself until I die.
And that's what I did, because when I was in primary, I got bullied for, I think, from grade 5, 6, and 7.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, and when I got to high school, I remember telling myself that I will never, ever accept anybody treating me the way that they have before. And I think in a way, I sort of developed this mask, you know. If you come at me, I'm going to come at you, you know. And I wasn't, it's funny that you say I'm poised, and I don't think I was. There was a period in my life where I really wasn't, you know. I was just always ready to attack. Not physically, but always and I have an attitude. You know, what did you say? Who said what about me? Let's go.
Yeah,
I'm
ready for it.
I heard that you said, you know. And when I left high school, and I remember in my second year, I started going to church again, because I had stopped going to church for a while.
Yeah.
Started going to church again, and I had my encounter with the Lord, and it just stripped away all of those things. I was like, you know what? This is not what a noble woman would do, you know? Let me carry myself the way God sees me. So yeah, I don't think I was always this poised.
Sure.
Not always.
But sometimes it's also, it's that thing. There's this thing where people say sometimes you needed to develop certain defense mechanisms to get you through certain seasons of your life. And it's so beautiful that you've gotten to a point where you're like, I don't need these anymore. You know? Because for some people, you know, it's so hard to let go of that.
It is.
Because I've had to be strong my whole life. I'm going to continue to be strong.
To be this person.
And then you end up self-sabotaging. And then you're like, life is always against me. But
yeah. And I think that's why I tend to have a lot of empathy towards people who are heavily judged by society. And I was telling my husband this a few days ago, and I said, I mean, I won't mention names, but I was like, you know, there are certain people who I know when they go on Twitter, they will tweet the most reckless things. They will post the most reckless things on their Instagram, social media, or whatever. And I actually have such a soft spot for such people, because I know where it comes from, right?
It's a cry for help.
Yeah, to them, they're putting out this facade to say, I'm tough and this is my opinion and you can't change it and I don't care. But they do.
Sure.
They do. So having a bit of empathy, I think, and you know, I think we are taught that you need to have empathy towards people who deserve it. But
it's the people who we think don't deserve it
that need it the most. Yeah.
Sure.
In my life as well, there were times where I received empathy from people when I didn't deserve it. There was a teacher in high school, Mrs. Lark. She was my math teacher, and I think she kind of saw right through me, and she would always kind of like ask me to stay after class, you know, ask me, how are you doing? Like, are you okay? Do you want me to pray for you? You know? And I'd always just think, what is with this woman?
I know, right?
You know, like,
you're like,
no, I don't want to talk about my feelings. But I think she really saw that, no, this is probably just a wounded child. And she probably just needs someone to genuinely just ask, like, how are you? Are you okay? You know, why are you acting out? Why did you speak to such and such in that way? You know, maybe go apologize. Of course, I never did at the time.
It's the accountability for me.
But just knowing, I think at that time that there was actually someone who saw me made such a huge difference in my life.
Sure. Would you say that the experiences may have had an impact in you having, you know, such a soft spot for the youth and things that affect them?
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I always say that I honestly could have been another statistic myself. And I'm fortunate to have been in environments that allowed me to flourish, you know. And I always share the story, but there was a time my husband and I were driving from Sun City is in the northwest, ne? Driving from northwest. So, you know, just like how it is even here in Joburg, you have Sandton.
And you have,
what's the other?
Your Alexander.
Alex, yes. You have Sandton and you have Alex on the other side. So even when we were driving back from Sun City, we had gone on a holiday there. And obviously Sun City is a beautiful place, right? And as we were driving back into Johannesburg, there was an informal settlement towards our left. And I saw a group of these boys just standing on the corner, and they were sort of just admiring the cars that were driving past. And when I saw that, in a strange way, it really touched me, because the first thought that came to mind is, what are the chances that these boys are going to make it out of this environment that they're in? And then it obviously caused me to look at my own life and say, what were the chances I was going to make it out of the environment that I was in? And it literally always just boils down to environment and what you are exposed to, right? The reason why you were able to start this podcast is because you knew it's possible. You had seen it before, you know. But if you had never seen it, if you had never been exposed to something, you would have never, the seed would have never been planted in your mind.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing even with the things that we aspire to be in life. A lot of those things are a result of what we've seen, what we've been exposed to, and what we know to be possible to achieve in life. And that's what young people need in our country. Majority of young people in this country, as we know, are unemployed. Majority of South African citizens live in severe poverty. And for them, life ends with a gun. It starts with a gun, it ends with a gun. You know, for some of them, life ends with having kids that you are not able to take care of, and that's that. Because they haven't seen, or they haven't, that spark in them is not there for them to see that, you know what, it's actually possible for me to achieve a lot more than what I'm exposed to and what my environment is right now. And so, yeah, I have a very soft spot for young people. South Africa is so rich.
I know,
right? There's a lot happening in our country at the moment, but our country is so rich with potential, and more so within young people. And I think at this point, we kind of need to shift our focus away from waiting for the state to do stuff. I think each one of us sort of have an important role in contributing something towards a young person's life, you know, because the spark can definitely be there.
It can. And I mean, I agree with you there. I used to say, after coming to Pretoria, I used to tell my dad that, you know, I wish I could go back home, get buses and fill all the girls from home and bring them like here and just have them spend the day in Sandton and just, you know, like, you know, around Sandton City, and just that. It opens your eyes. Women are doing great things.
They are.
And when you go back home, you're not going to just aspire like to just, I don't know, be someone's everything. And did you get what I'm saying? So you're going to feel like, oh my God, I can do it.
Exactly.
Do you get what I'm saying? Sure.
It's like, even when you, like, I love following very influential women on my social media, and sometimes I'll be having a lazy day in bed. It's like 9:30 and I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see a post by Nozi Chabalala, for example, and I'm like, girl, you better get out of bed.
She gets me all
get
the
yourself
time.
together, like, you know, because it's what I'm seeing, it's what I'm exposed to on a daily basis.
Sure, so true. And I mean, it's also such a blessing to have the perspective of it being a healthy, like, inspiration,
right?
Because it can easily be the other way.
No, definitely.
Sure. So what do you hope to do with, if money wasn't a problem, nothing was a problem, and you could just run with it? What are your hopes for the platform?
Set in Motion.
Yes.
I actually have something that I'm working on,
Yay.
but my husband has asked me not to share.
No, I get it.
It's like one of those things where he's like, you probably don't want people hearing about this until
you are doing it.
Yeah, until it's actually been, you are sure that this thing's going to happen. But one thing that I do want to do this year is I want to have my first workshop for Set in Motion.
I love that.
So, like I said, I do eventually want to venture into more youth initiatives and so forth. But I think right now, speaking about childhood sexual consent is very important. It almost feels like I can't brush it off.
Yeah.
And that's why I said earlier that it is beyond me at this point. So I want to have my first workshop, a very practical workshop. I don't want it to be an event where people just come and they sit and they listen to like 10 speakers and then it's done, right? I really feel like with this, when all caregivers, whether you are a big sister, big brother, aunt, uncle, grandma, nanny, teacher, and obviously parents, I want people to know that they're welcome to come.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the one thing I'm planning to do. And I think with my latest post on Set in Motion, I did say that I kind of want to expand a bit more on the initiative. I want to have some mentorship programs as well. So more than anything, I'm really hoping that it will become a conversation starter around this incredibly serious issue that we have in our society. I'm hoping that parents will know that speaking about childhood sexual abuse doesn't take away from your child's innocence.
Absolutely.
If anything, it preserves it, it protects it. I want parents to know that teaching your child consent is not talking to them about sex. Consent is not just sex, right? And more than anything, I hope that a lot of caregivers will also find a lot of healing through this platform, because it can be a major trigger, which is some of the DMs that I've gotten where people are like, no, this is too much. I can't, thank you for trying, but I can't follow this platform, because a lot of people have been sexually abused as children. So, yeah.
And I mean, that's dangerous, right? Because if we haven't healed, you're not going to be able to be there for your child.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to show up for them.
No.
You're not even going to be able to see the signs if there's anything that needs your attention.
And sometimes you will, but the trauma of what you've been through will be so great that you're actually going to choose to just ignore it. Yeah. Which is why a lot of people grow up, but they are so angry at parents or, I don't know, the elders in their family for not acting when they knew that there's an uncle in the family that's doing something to another child. And I'm like, some things you shouldn't always just take at face value. Always kind of look at why people behave the way that they do.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of people, like I said, it has happened to them before, and it is so traumatic that at times when you see it replaying, like you are watching it, it's not happening to you. You actually want nothing to do with it.
You just want to disassociate.
Yeah, you're just like, you know what?
It's taking you to places you don't want to go into, tap into within yourself.
Yeah. It's the crazy. I mean, you should know this better as someone who has studied psychology. Sometimes people do the most bizarre things, and you're like, but how would a human behave this way? But when you actually sit down and you assess this person, you can kind of see the reasons why they behaved the way that they did, you know. And that's why I said earlier on that Set in Motion is not an easily digestible platform,
but very necessary.
Yeah, for a lot of people, when they see it, they're just like, no, not today. We're not dealing with this, you know. And I remember with an episode that I had about private parts, where I was saying that call a penis a penis, call a vagina, call breast.
Yes,
you know, teach your child the difference between a vagina and the vulva. Do you know the difference between the vulva and the vagina? Do you know the difference between the scrotum, the testicles, all of those things? And I got so many DMs, people saying, what you're doing is wrong. And children shouldn't be taught such things. And I was like, okay, what's wrong with the word penis? if you actually just look at the word. Because if you can call a nose, then why can't a penis be a penis or a vagina?
And you know what I'm thinking? There have been cases where a child is raped and a child is not even able to express what happened to them because they cannot even describe a body part. So for a parent who's out there listening to this conversation, wants to do better, but they're not really sure what's the importance of having these conversations, the importance of having these conversations with our kids.
So the first thing is that it creates a culture of consent in your home. And like I said, teaching consent, it doesn't have to be a sexual conversation.
Absolutely.
Teaching consent can be as easy as everyone in the family agreeing that if you want to give the other person a hug, ask for permission for a hug. And it has to be a clear yes
or no.
If they don't answer, that means they're not sure. So it's a no, right?
I'm triggered because and I'm sorry to interject, as a Black community, you'll be forced as a child to hug the aunt, to kiss the uncle, to... it's you must show respect and kiss the uncle, hug the aunt. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and so what that does already at that age, it teaches you that my body actually really isn't mine. I kind of have to go along with what the other person wants me to do so that I'm not rude. I don't appear as being strange towards them, and that's why a lot of children end up not speaking up when they have been sexually assaulted, because
it's
confusing, because it's like, no, I didn't want to do it, and I told him I don't want to do it, but he still did it anyway. Okay, but last week mommy forced me to kiss uncle whoever, and I didn't want to, but I still had to kiss him anyway. So I guess it's okay. Do you see the ripple effects that has? So teaching consent, it has so many amazing benefits, and one of the things that I really hope we can also get out of this platform is not only raising our children in a safer society right now, but also raising adults who truly understand consent.
Yes, because I think that's where the issue is.
That's actually what it is. My biggest dream, like with my son, I of course want him to be safe. I want him to be able to express and tell us if something were to happen. And at the same time, I want him to grow up to be a respectful man. I want him to understand boundaries. I want him to know that if someone's body language is a bit, they're probably not comfortable. They don't want to do it. That's the kind of man I want to raise in this society. I want your daughter to be safe with my son.
And not...
Exactly. So...
yeah, and I'm thinking about... because I'm thinking about a whole lot of things, right? With that, can you think about just when you have a child as a woman, how you don't necessarily have a right to say no to people coming to see your child, because adults are the people that are really struggling with boundaries.
They are.
Sure.
And they throw their toys out of the cot when you say no. But generally, that's what people do when you set boundaries. People don't like boundaries at all. And you're doing a good job at setting boundaries when everyone is mad.
Yeah.
When everyone is mad at you, that's when you're like, yeah, I definitely made the right decision here. Yeah. With my son, it's the same thing. There'll be people trying to pick him up, and I'll tell them, you can clearly see he doesn't want you to pick him up, so please don't pick him up, Or I'll pick him up and I'll say, you can give a high five. Do you want to give a high five? If he's still a bit off, we don't force it. We don't force it. But I think it's also something that I learned as well with my birth experience, and I guess COVID helped as well, because for us the excuse was COVID. The baby is small, like, let's give him time, which was valid.
Very valid. We had to wait for COVID to come and teach us that.
Exactly, it was valid. Things like, why are you kissing my child on the lips, type of thing. But then within our communities, that's seen as being rude.
Right.
But it's more of a practical way of like sort of mitigating the risk of transmission of viruses between an adult and a child. But with us, because we've been taught, you know what, no, this is a child. What does a child know? I'm going to kiss this child. I'm going to hug this child. I'm going to do this to this child.
Sure, man. And sometimes it's at the detriment of the child. Because I was once in hospital. My son wasn't well. And there was a lady across the room with a 3-month-old baby. And the physio came every few hours. And he was literally like doing this to the back of the child. Because that child had developed some, infection. And they needed to do that for that child to heal. And I asked her what happened. And she's like, there's a family member that came, they had flu, and then now this child has a whole infection spreading to the ears, throat, lungs,
it's
everywhere.
Terrible.
Why can't we be okay with boundaries?
Even with me, I've had moments where someone else, honestly speaking, where someone will set a boundary with me, and I'm like, how could you? And then I kind of have to come back and remind myself, who do I think I am to feel so entitled over another person's space or their anatomy?
And
I don't.
Their
preference. Like, I actually don't have a right to do that. So I have to call myself out very quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. Boundaries are difficult. They're different to set and they're difficult to adhere to as well.
Sure. What do you think we can do better just as parents raising kids now to just kind of normalize boundaries and just saying no being no, and yes being yes? And I mean, to a certain extent, we mess up kids because they come with boundaries. You know when a child doesn't want to do something with you, but we end up saying, no, you must show respect. You must, when an older person talk to you, don't,
Right.
So what can we do to like normalize boundaries?
I think the first thing we can do is to recognize children as humans.
Individuals.
Yeah. I don't know. In society, there's this weird misconception about who and what we think children are. You have to be aware your children as young as they are, but you're actually raising an adult.
Absolutely.
You're raising someone who's going to become an adult here. Our children are individuals that should be respected. And again, this is not to enable disrespect. It's not to say that you mustn't discipline your child, which is your responsibility as a parent, right? To set the rules in your home, to discipline them. I'm not going to tell parents how to discipline their children, but you should be a leader in your home. And part of being a leader as well is treating your child with respect.
Sure.
It's honoring your child's boundaries as well.
Absolutely.
If your child doesn't want to give you a kiss, it actually has nothing to do with you. They just don't want to give you a kiss in that moment. If they don't want to give a hug, they just physically, for them, they just don't want to do it. The same way, you as an adult, you have times when you kind of just, you're in your own space, you kind of just don't want to,
Sure.
So I think the biggest thing that I've learned as well is recognizing that my child is an individual, that he needs to be respected first and foremost. And in our home, how we look at respect is he needs to see us model it for him first, so that one day it comes naturally to him. Because I think we have a tendency of saying, you must respect me because I'm your mom. You must respect me just because I'm your dad.
But you're not respecting them.
You're not respecting them.
And kids do what we do. They don't do what we say.
Yeah. So children tend to model a lot of what we do. And that's how I was saying that even with my dream with my son, with raising a young man in this country, is that I hope he becomes an adult who understands consent, who understands boundaries, because he would have seen it in our home. If he were to turn out to be the opposite, I'd be very shocked. I'd be like, I don't know where you learned that from, because you didn't see that between myself and your dad.
Sure.
So I would say the biggest thing is just treat your child like the young human that they are, while still withholding the values that you see fit to teach them in their lives, and sort of practice what you preach. Practice what you preach.
Sure, absolutely. And talking about motherhood, how has that been for you? What was the transition into motherhood like?
Oh my goodness. Not an easy transition at all. I gave birth in the middle of 2021. So COVID was still quite hectic at the time. And honestly, the transition for me was very difficult because of how lonely it felt. Motherhood, let me not even say motherhood, but pregnancy, number one, is very lonely.
Very, very lonely.
And also because I announced my pregnancy after I'd given birth. So a few weeks after I gave birth. So I wasn't really going out much. And my husband and I had just decided to keep our pregnancy private, you know. So I found that motherhood can be so lonely.
Very lonely.
It's very lonely, and it's also very difficult to meet other mom friends that are even willing to hang out, to have conversations with you. But I do see that changing quite a lot.
Absolutely.
I think, and on my way here, well, just before I left, I was reading through Dr. Lekalakala's Clueless Moms Instagram page.
Yes.
And she was told the latest topic she's having is sex after baby.
Sure.
You know, normally this is not a conversation that you would have really had. But
you
that's
just
kind of like,
on your own.
yeah, it's kind of the beauty of social media today, where
Right.
it's allowing us to be more open and vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And also share our story. Our story is a bit more. I struggled quite a bit. I think every mom struggles quite a lot in the first few weeks, sleep deprivation and so forth. And also not having my mom around.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you
I
know
can
how
relate.
you experienced that as well. And also going through the phase of mourning my life before having my son.
That is a thing.
Yeah, I definitely wanted my son from the second I found out about him, and I was so excited to become a parent right up until the time I had him.
Yeah.
And we got home, like, I was just like, yes, God, I'm so ready for this. Thank you for this blessing. And so when you go through that period where you are mourning your life before, it comes as a shock, because it's like, I thought, you know, but I was like,
Everybody's
okay.
going, congratulations.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's so cute.
Exactly.
You know, and it's so hard to even go, I'm actually not very happy right now.
You know, the postpartum blues. But I think once we got a bit more help at home, my husband really did his best. You know, my husband really, really did the best that he could at that time. And then we eventually got a bit more help, and it got a lot easier.
Sure.
I have loved every second of being a mom.
Sure.
Every second of being a mom hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
Right? It's not easy at all. I do find myself feeling a bit more anxious than I used to before becoming a parent. So sometimes I will literally hear a child scream outside, and my child is at school. But I panic because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, my child. And I'm like, oh, your child's at school. You know? So that constant state of like always feeling anxious, always being worried, like, is my child okay? Can I leave my child with this person? Is because he started creche 3 weeks ago. Is he ready for creche? Did we take him to creche too soon? Are they going to know what he wants? I mean, I understand baby language, you know. Are they going to get him? You know, is he going to feel like he's not getting the affection and the warmth that he would get from mommy? Because, you know, mommy spoils him with lots of hugs and kisses all the time. So it hasn't been easy, but it's definitely been such a life-changing experience for me. I really think it's made me a better person.
Sure.
And I think it's made me even more poised.
Sure.
Because I feel like, you know, I read this quote and it said, one day your child is going to grow up and they're going to see you for exactly who you are.
Ooh.
So your child is not just going to see you as, that's my mom, that's my dad. One day they're really going to see right through the person, not the parent, but the person that you are. And that on its own just motivates me to want to be better.
There's no time to motivate how they should see you around that time. Your actions should.
Exactly. It motivates me to want to continue to heal. It motivates me to continue to want to work through my childhood traumas. It motivates me to actually want to also be a better wife. You know, the best thing you can do for your child is to raise them in a healthy home.
Or their mom.
Yeah, that's literally the best thing you can do. And my husband and I, like, we don't mind leaving our son for the weekend.
I mean,
to go jolla somewhere, because we know it benefits everyone in the house.
Absolutely. And he's gonna grow one day and he's gonna be like, guys, toodles.
Exactly.
And you are going to be two strangers that don't know each other. And you can't use him as an excuse
No,
because
you
he's never asked you guys
can't.
to stay and
To
not
stay,
continue to get to know each other.
But
Sure.
even from like a psychological perspective, it's
Yeah,
really great for a child to
happy
grow up in a
home.
nuclear home. It's so important. And it's
Very.
something that I feel like in our society today, people are trying to change the narrative
Sure.
a lot.
Right.
To say, you don't need to, just leave when you,
We
it's not
being
worth
very
it.
philosophical, right?
And it's like, yes, don't stay in an environment where it's abusive and it's just not you have to leave. There are situations, of course, where it's
you
like,
have to.
I will even come help you pack your bags.
Yeah.
You get into my car and we can go. But I just feel like in today's society, the importance of nuclear families is something that is
We are slowly missing the point.
There's some twisting there. And obviously as a believer, from a spiritual perspective, I'm like, I can see what's happening here.
Right?
You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I ain't going nowhere. That's my man. And I'm going to stick by him.
I know, right?
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's God's design.
Absolutely. And I love what Michelle Obama is doing for that.
Oh my goodness.
Because if she goes, because I was listening to her yesterday as well, she was saying, if we've had 30 years of marriage and 10 of those were not good because we were figuring out being parents, this, that, but 20 years of those were amazing. Why must I feel like I need to run from the 10 years
Sure.
if they're going to get me to the best 20 years?
Exactly.
And I mean, the thing we don't get, I think we miss the point that relationships are work.
Lots of work.
It doesn't matter whether it's with your sibling, with your teacher, with your, they are all work. And it's almost like we just want soft, but we don't want to put in the work.
We don't want to put in the work. It is constant dying to self. You know, when the Bible says the two shall become one.
Yeah.
That is such a significant
Absolutely.
thing to say. The two shall become one. Do you know how difficult it is to
Sure.
put together two worlds, right? Because I grew up in my own way. My husband grew up in his own way. And now we are literally in the process of becoming one. There are things that need to fall away.
Absolutely.
There are things where we share the exact same values, like we get along like a house on fire with certain things. And other things, we'll just never see eye to eye.
Yeah.
At all. And some things have to fall away.
Absolutely. And the falling away is not going to be cute.
No.
It's not going to be cute.
Because,
and I think we miss that.
Yeah. Because what happens is you want to hold on to the you've always been. The you that never used to apologize for anything. Why must I now learn how to apologize? And again, it's also ego.
Yes.
It's ego. It's
I think
pride.
we operate a lot from our ego, especially this generation.
This
right?
generation we do. And as a young, independent woman, there are so many traditional values I withhold within my home because I can see what they've done and I can see what they will continue to do for our marriage.
Absolutely.
Simple things. This is and this probably for a lot of people is going to be like, okay, Palesa, and then? But when I serve my husband food, I bring it on a tray.
Listen, I hear you.
You would never catch me bring a plate with my bare hands. No ways.
And I mean, we take such things for granted.
For granted.
Right? But that is nurturing the love.
Yes, it's in the small things. It's not always what we see on, because what we're seeing on social media now are all these big gestures, the 200 roses, the trips to God knows where, which is beautiful. Yeah. It's nice. If you and your partner can do that in your marriage, go ahead and do it, you know.
But do you serve them with love and
But that's
intention?
Literally just
the small things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy. My husband and I were having a conversation a few days ago, and we were just taking stock of where we are. And he was saying, I want the small things, because he was so upset. He's been asking, please lotion my bag, and I just have a thing with that thing. Sometimes I'm not in the mood
to do it.
It touches him so much that he's like he was so upset. It went on for days, and I could see, I'm like, it's just lotion in your bag. But I realized, and then he came back and he said, you know, when we met, I didn't understand much about love languages. But I'm at a point where, like, when you touch me, it's such a love language. And you just lotioning my back, it does so much for me. But I wasn't even there. And for me, I'm like, yo, I'm very, like, finicky about a lot of things. And my daughter's like that as well.
Right.
I don't wanna, cause there's your sweat and then there's lotion, and then I'm thinking about that. But then for him, it's like a love language. He's like, I could literally give you all my bank cards. I just want you to do that.
Yo.
And I was like, sure, guys. We sometimes forget about the small things.
We forget. And I think through marriage as well, I've learned that, like, we are inherently very selfish beings.
Yo.
Humans are actually extremely selfish.
Absolutely.
And so a friend of mine, she's been married for a couple of years longer than I have. She once said to me, and this is before I got married.
Yeah.
And she said to me, sis, marriage was not created for happiness.
Ooh,
so
come through with that.
If you want to get married for happiness,
I learned
you're not going to find it at all. It's not there.
Because it's supposed to come from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she said marriage was created to make you holy. And I'm like, holy? She's like, if you want to have a healthy marriage, you need to be slow to anger.
Sure.
You need to be forgiving. You need to be compassionate.
Sure.
You need to be selfless. And these are all the characteristics of Christ.
Absolutely.
You can't be prideful in a marriage. Your ego can't...
Yeah.
We mustn't see your ego at all.
It can't be found
when
no,
it
around.
Can't.
Yeah.
Because nothing will grow from that.
That is so true.
And so when she said that, I was like, do I want to get married one day? I don't know. Yeah. Because we're taught that when you get married, you're going to be so happy.
Yeah.
And it's like...
roses
exactly,
every day. Yeah.
Exactly. And then you get married and you realize that, yes, there's so much beauty in being married.
So much beauty.
And at the same time, you literally die to self every single day. And it actually has nothing to do with you. Sometimes you put your husband's or your wife's needs before your own, like you are explaining with the lotion. To you, it means nothing. To you, it's probably even gross.
It was gross until he explained it. I was like,
it's gross, but it's
it.
not about you. And that is where selflessness comes in. Marriage is not about happiness.
Sure. And I mean, in my first year of marriage, first, second, third year of marriage, and I was in my early 20s, I went in thinking this man is supposed to make me happy.
Sure.
And I had abandoned a lot of things. I was just focusing on the baby, my husband. And I learned the hard way that, nah, man, these people aren't going to make me happy.
No.
It's my responsibility to go to God and make sure that I'm whole and I'm happy within myself. And then I need to go and serve these people. And they will do the same.
And how unfair is it to place your happiness on someone else?
It's a huge responsibility.
Because they're always going to fall short.
Absolutely. They don't live in your head.
Exactly. Even with our children, I told myself a long time ago, and I said, it's not my responsibility to make my child happy.
Absolutely.
It is my responsibility to provide for my child, to protect my child,
make sure
to
he's
give
safe.
my child unconditional love.
Even when you don't approve.
Even when I don't. And my responsibility to raise my child in a way that pleases the Lord. But to say I'm gonna make him happy, no, I'm good.
Sure.
I'm not taking that responsibility upon myself.
Sure.
And it's something my husband, he said it very early in our relationship, and I remember thinking, this man, and he was like, you know what, babe, you're not here to save me. And I'm not here to save you. He literally said, you're not here to save me. I'm not here to save you. And I thought, this man, excuse me? You know, like, what do you mean? And then it also makes you realize that, sure, there's so many things we've learned about relationships that are like...
that are so wrong.
They are so wrong. Because even before I met him, I had been in a relationship where it was chaos. I left the relationship very early on because I could see where it was going. But it's when I look back, even at that relationship, I'm like, there was so much... codependence on each other, right? And when a lot of the reasons why people feel so heartbroken after a relationship is not necessarily because of the love, but because of the
the
codependency that
Absolutely.
they had on the other person. I dated this guy in university, my first year. So I'm like a long-term relationship girl.
Listen,
I'm not for the streets.
I get you.
So,
they are very cold.
Yeah. So I dated this guy in varsity, and we dated for almost 2 years, and we started dating, I think, a month after I started my first year. So I kind of discovered university and like just university life with him. And when we broke up, I remember feeling so lost and so distraught. But then I knew the feeling wasn't love. It was more of, oh my goodness, I have to walk around campus by myself. I need to go get food by myself. I need to figure out my week by myself. Like the codependency was so deep.
Sure.
That I was absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt like my world was ending. Not because of love, like I said, but because codependency is very dangerous.
Sure.
And even in a marriage.
Right.
And the other person can easily become your God.
Absolutely.
Your idol.
Yeah.
If you are not careful.
Yeah. And I think I've been through that. I think I was there, and I even got, my family, my kids and my husband, into a place where, like, because everything was for them and everything was, And then when I switched up, when one day I realized that, listen, no, first of all, the expectations I'm placing on this man are just, unbearable.
Right.
And then I did the switch. Remember, they are used to you being a certain way. Now it's hard for them to do the switch as well. But now I realize, I always say, I'm in a place where if one day, my husband, and God forbid that my husband wakes up and says, listen, it's not working out, I'm cool. I would love for you to be very happy, and I would not want to keep you here if you're not happy. And that doesn't mean you don't love them, but that just means you don't, the codependency thing.
It's not there.
If you're not with me, then you can't be with anybody else. Sure.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous.
It's a very dangerous place to be in. And I think, even as a woman, I think the most feminine thing you can do for yourself as a woman is to love your family, right? Do your part, but also take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
And when I say take care of yourself, I'm not even talking about nails, hair, lashes, makeup, but really taking care of yourself, taking care of your dreams, taking care of your vision, taking care of your job, your hobbies.
Absolutely.
That is so feminine.
Absolutely.
And when you start to do things more for you, you will also see how that positively impacts your relationship.
That's good bleeding,
right? That's femininity, I believe, at its core.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, looking pretty and whatever else, it's a feminine thing to do as well. But actually taking care of yourself, taking care of your dreams, it's so attractive.
Sure.
It is so attractive to do that. Yeah.
Very. And you just also, it avoids a lot of things. Because then if a situation becomes toxic, you can easily just excuse yourself.
Yeah.
But also you don't become toxic towards other people. Because I know from my experience that when I was the most unfulfilled, because I chose to want to be the savior for everyone, I felt like they were making me, be that person, but I was choosing to be that person. And now that I'm doing my own things, I come back so happy, so full. And I'm like, I'm just a ball of good energy.
Exactly. And a couple of years from now, you're not going to look back at your life and think, Buledi, why didn't you do A, B, and C? And then now you start to resent your husband and you're like, I was busy taking care of you and the kids. Excuse me. And he'll just be like, but
I didn't ask you.
I didn't ask, baby.
And men know how to prioritize themselves.
Exactly.
They don't settle like that.
I always tell my husband that, like, if there's one thing that I love about men, is how selfish they can be. Yeah. And when I say selfish,
very unapologetic about it.
Yeah, I don't mean selfish in a malicious
bad way.
Or bad way. But I feel like men have this thing where they're able to assess a situation and they're like, is this going to work for me? Is it going to benefit me in any way?
If it doesn't, they don't sugarcoat
They're not going to do it.
Yeah.
They're not going to bother to do it.
Sure.
But if they see, if I do A, B, and C, it's going to lead to this. Trust me, they're going all in.
Sure.
With us, we have been taught to be so considerate of everyone else's emotions and feelings and well-being first, and then us. As a woman, when you make a decision for you,
sure, you look selfish.
You know how I saw this, Nam? Days where my husband would say, babe, I'm back home early. Let me put Kumo to sleep. I'd say, wow, babe, thank you so much.
Right.
And then the one day I sat down and I was like, why am I being so overly, showing so much gratitude towards him, just putting our child to sleep?
Absolutely. His baby to bed.
His baby to bed. And I realized it's because I have developed this thing where I feel like I have to take care of everyone and make sure everything is fine. And, it's about everyone else, that when someone just says, I'm putting the child to sleep, I see it as this big gesture. He's literally putting his child to sleep. Like, it's not that deep, So now when he says, babe, I'm doing this, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Babe, let me do this. Here. Okay.
You'll find me here.
Yeah, I'll say there are obviously certain things I'll thank him, babe. Thank you for being a wonderful provider for us, showing appreciation and affirming him as our leader in the home. But certain things like no.
Sure.
That thing of me wanting to... Yeah, it's gone.
And that is a beautiful place to be.
It's great.
And with that said, just from sharing your journey with us to where you are now, if there's a woman out there who feels like, or even a boy who feels like life is closing in on me, what would you like your life to be to those people?
I think I said it earlier that, first of all, there is nothing special about me. I am not superior to anybody at all. I am not like the smartest person in the room all the time, or the most blessed person in the room all the time. But what I am is blessed.
Sure.
What I am is seen by God.
Sure.
What I am is an heir to the kingdom of Christ.
Sure.
An heir with Christ, in fact. And I would want anyone to look at my life and see that sometimes all you need to do, honestly, and I've seen this in my own life, sometimes all you need to do is just show up. Sometimes all you need to do is just try. Just keep trying. I was listening to a podcast with Nomdeni. I forgot her surname. But she said one thing she has learned is to follow the breadcrumbs.
Yes, because they'll lead you to
and
listen.
that has stuck with me.
Yeah.
Because I look at my life and I really think it's because I wasn't aware, but I just kept following the
breadcrumbs.
Breadcrumbs. And I'm still following the breadcrumbs because I know I'm far from the woman that I have been called to be in this world. But I'm on my way to her. She's waiting for me on the other side.
Sure.
Follow the breadcrumbs and you'll get to the bakery. Wow. And one thing that I also learned at a young age is, how we all like to say, one day I'm going to be a millionaire and I'm going to drive a Porsche and I'm going to get married. I'm going to be this amazing man, amazing woman. I'm like, okay. And how do you suppose you're going to get there? What are you doing right now to get there? Because what I can guarantee you is you're not just going to wake up one day as a millionaire. You're not just going to wake up one day healed. You're not just going to wake up one day with the family or the things that you desire. What are you doing today to get there?
Sure.
So step by step, brick by brick, I'm literally a result of just following
the breadcrumbs.
The breadcrumbs.
Sure.
Maybe with how I grew up without having my parents, maybe that's why I'm so passionate about young people today. Those are the breadcrumbs of my life that I have continued to follow.
And I mean, Oprah was just, I was listening to Oprah yesterday and she was saying, literally every small thing that happened, every small and big thing that happened in your life, even the tragic ones, they are leading to something that is for your good. And I know at the time it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I would tell anyone. Just follow the breadcrumbs. Be patient. Life is going to happen in very different ways for all of us, For example, with me, one thing people always ask me is, why did you get married so young? Because I got married when I was just before I turned 24. And I'm sure there's the question that you've gotten as well.
I'm always, because I got married at 21.
Right? So, and I'll say, because this is just how my life was supposed to turn out. There is someone else who's probably going to get married at 50, and that's when they're supposed to get married.
There's no formula to this.
Exactly. So what ends up happening sometimes when you lose focus on your own life, you can become so distracted to a point where when your blessing arrives at the right time, you don't even see it, or you can delay yourself. Do you understand what I mean? Be patient with yourself. And another thing is that social media is not 100%. We're just showing
highlights.
Yeah, we're just showing the good parts of our lives. There are people who are a lot more vulnerable and they share everything. That's on them. But for the most part, we're literally just showing highlights. That's it.
And I mean, even with the sharing, I'd like to believe that for most people, it's coming from a place of just wanting to inspire, right? And if it gets to a point where for you it evokes emotions that aren't right, it goes back to what you were saying. Go introspect and follow as well. I don't understand people also who they'll continue to follow you, but they will just write the meanest comments, send you the wildest DMs, and I'm like, but why are you still here? Why are you doing this? You know, clearly something is wrong, and it's not with me. So unfollow. I do that and what I mean by I do that is I follow people, and this is probably not going to sound that great, but I follow people who are similar to me. So I'm not, for example, back in the day, I'm still small now, but back in the day, like, I was super, super tiny, and I was so obsessed with gaining weight. And because at the time, I've been through that.
Yeah, because at the time, what's trending is girls with a certain physique, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, God, like, what happened? What's going on? And so I would follow these people that I wanted to look like, and every time I'd go on my social media, it would just exacerbate my insecurities. Until one day I was like, you know what? No,
it's unhealthy.
Let me follow people who look like me, so that when I see it, it's not something where I'm always thinking, oh my goodness, I wish I was, And it's the same thing as well in terms of certain values that people have. I will most likely go through your profile first and scroll through it and see if you are someone who I align with in terms of my beliefs, my values, my morals, and so forth, and sort of like the level of entertainment that I want on my social media. I will look at that, and if I feel like,
this is something I like,
then I'll do that, because I'm not going to bother myself with... I'm following someone who I don't even like what they post. So every time they post, I'm always criticizing. I'm always criticizing. I'm always like, in my mind, I'm always just saying all these things about this person. Like, why would I do that?
But I mean, I guess, I don't know. I guess it's not common sense, but we need to normalize it. For your peace of mind. For your peace of mind. For everyone's peace of mind.
Sure. I think one of the things that I'm really not enjoying about social media right now is how familiar we've become.
Yes, with each other.
And I think I saw that through AKA's passing.
Sure.
And I remember going to bed angry. I was so angry before an official statement was released by his family. And I saw people already posting him saying R.I.P. I saw people under Zinhle's posts, under Cairo's posts, under Nadia's posts.
What if they haven't been on their phones and they get notifications before they are even informed?
This is at midnight. People are posting these things at midnight.
I saw that.
And I was so disgusted, honestly. I was like, there is no way. I know these are public figures, right?
But they are human.
And they are not our property. They are far from it. Just the level of respect to wait for a formal statement to be released and then start posting your RIPs. So there's a lot of values, I think, social media has stripped away from society, where we just feel certain things are not necessary anymore, and certain things are just so normal when they actually in real life they are not. It's not normal to do that. It's not normal to go under someone's post and say, is such and such really dead, and they are talking about someone that you loved, and they are asking you, are they really dead? Would you ask someone that in real life? Sometimes you need to ask yourself that, how would this translate in person? How would it translate in person?
Sure. And I mean, I'm talking a lot about Lerato, but she was here is just saying, before she could put out a statement, before she got to the hospital, someone had put out a statement about her mother's passing.
Sure.
And she's like, that devastated her. Like, she was just so devastated because
and the video as well circulating.
It's
I think wrong on so many levels. It's unacceptable. So I think we kind of need to bring back some decorum when it comes to how we behave on social media. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, to date, I know I was speaking about following people who are similar to me, but even people who are similar to me, there's still a lot of differences that we have, right? They'll post their opinions about something and I don't always agree, but I'm not going to start attacking
on those people.
Because who do I think I am?
And that's the thing, right? Yeah. There are moments where you read something and you're
like, hey,
I know. I once read something so insensitive, and you know, it was just, you know, crucifying how someone is grieving, and as someone who's had to grieve, I was like, you really sometimes don't know this until you lose someone.
Exactly.
But I'm not gonna go and say, don't say anything because you haven't dealt with the loss. No. Because then it's so wrong.
It's wrong, People on social media are wild. And I think that's why I keep a lot of my personal life very personal. So with me, I have a very strange sense of humor. I'm sure you've noticed that. Yeah. So I'll post TikTok videos, I'll repost, I like to repost quotes and whatever else. I've decided to no longer post my son on social media for personal reasons.
I can understand.
Yeah, you know, even with my husband, I mean, if he comments on a post of mine, he comments, it's fine. But there are just certain things I feel like you kind of need to, for me, with what I have seen, and maybe I'm also just very sensitive, my personal convictions, right? Where I'm just like, you know what, no, I'm actually not going to share certain things. And it's not like I have this huge following and I'm so popular, no. But
as a creator though, also, because I've once had Linda Mdoba say, people showed up to her husband and they were like, hey, are you? And sometimes our partners don't agree to the terms we agree to when we choose the careers that we choose. You know, speaking of Linda, she also there was a time when she wasn't sharing baby Bean's photos on social media after she was born, and she shared the one time that she was at the airport with her daughter and people were trying to take pictures. Oh my God, yeah.
Because it's like, well, you're not posting her,
so we're gonna take the pictures.
And I'm like, what kind of crack are people smoking?
Yeah, we really have, I don't know, we need to go back in time and really find our values again, because we definitely have lost some sense of humanity
through social media. But there's also thank you
you were
for
saying,
having
sorry,
me.
before I
Yes, I was saying there's also amazing people that have made social media, yourself being one of them. A lot of amazing relationships. Some of the friendships I've made here in Joburg have been through people I met.
No, that is true.
Social media. So there's also a very beautiful side to it.
There is a very beautiful side to it, and I always say this. There's a niece-in-law of mine who always says, are you not pressured? And I'm like, for me, it's a two-way. I get to build like positive connections. And when you have those boundaries, like, okay, if something bothers me, I block it and all of that. You are able to make sure it's a tool. It's a work tool, but you also build like positive relationships. Exactly. And it's able to like just positively impact your life.
I agree.
Sure. Thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
You are amazing. Continue doing amazing things. We can't wait to see what you do with, you know, for the youth especially, because it's not just for kids, it's for the youth. And it's just so beautiful that, you know, it's painful. I was with Michelle earlier in the day, and she was saying, it's not easy that, you know, you go through hardships for other people to learn from your lessons.
Sure.
But that is servitude.
That's life. it's like we have a joint responsibility towards
Each
each
other.
other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell to see when we post the next one. Until next time, I'm going to see you in the next episode. I just wanted to highlight, thanks to Glamtrix Beauty Studio for the beat. They are a brand that we've collaborated with for this season. I am so grateful for them. I'm going to leave a link in the description box so you can just click that if you need to book with them. But yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.